Good afternoon, everybody. Uh, my name is Daniel, and welcome to another edition of EB2 National Interest Waiver Green Card applications. Like I said, this is part of a training videos to educate applicants, potential applicants who are not able to hire a lawyer to go through their case and who want to take the initiative to file on their own. From previous episodes, we have covered a whole lot of stuff, which if you have not watched, I will advise that you go back and watch those episodes. This is a whole training series because but it's my wish that by the time we start and end this episodes or this program, you'll be able to have the enough or adequate resources to be able to file your own petitions. So please, I will advise that you follow along, especially from the starting to where we have gotten to where we are going. And like I said, my name is Daniel Ba, and I've always been and continue to be your servant for this particular program. Let me take this moment to kind of acknowledge my cherished viewers, audience, and followers who are following through this program from all over the world, from Colombia, from Nigeria, from Ghana, from the United States. I cherish all of you, and I'm very much grateful. There are some were like, oh, you are a good teacher. We really like the way you are teaching the whole thing. Yeah, let me tell you that I have about 4 years of teaching experience. So teaching is my hobby. I've taught in a high school for 3 years and I have 1 year of college teaching. So teaching is something that I also love alongside what I do in research or my career in healthcare, whatever I do. I also love teaching. Now, for today's episode, it's a part 2 of the eligibility criteria of the National Interest Waiver Green Card. The previous episode, what did we look at? So let's look at a recap of what we did previously. Previously, that's from last week, we're looking at the eligibility part A, where we looked at advanced degree. When we say advanced degree, the USCIS interpretation of advanced degree. And beside that, we looked at whether you are inland in the United States or outland out of the United States, or whether you have a foreign degree or a US degree, and how you should be going about filing your application. We talk about the WES evaluations. WES evaluation, take note that you have to use the WES United States, not the WES Canada. WES has 2 branches, United States and Canada, so take note of that. Go through the WES US if you are using it for immigration, select immigration. The whole process is self-explanatory, so you should be able to go through the whole process to do your WES evaluation, which I don't think I'll be covering a video on that. Probably if I have time along the line, somewhere, someday, I'll try and make a video on evaluation processes, but I think it should be more self-explanatory and should be easy to navigate. After that, we also looked at national importance and national intrinsic merit. I looked at all sectors of the United States economy of where your research should be cutting across. And whatever research you are doing, like I said, it can be multi criteria. It can be across different criteria, from economy to environment to natural resource to defense to education. So I took time to explain in detail what the national merit and the national importance is. I also once again say that if you have not watched last week's episode, please go back, watch and subscribe. We want to subscribe and keep your comments coming, keep your feedback coming, because it's going to push me to give more, especially in areas which I'm not able to cover, since EB2 National Interest Waiver is quite broad, and I can't cover everything until you push me and give me the areas you want me to be touching more. Then I can also be doing more for you, because I'm here to serve you. Yeah, for today, we are going to look at the part B of the eligibility. And the part B, we are going back to look at the 3-prong test. Remember, I'll be talking more about 3-prong test because that is where the USCIS officer will look at to adjudicate your case. He's looking at the 3 basic requirements. And if you meet 1 out of the 3, you are not satisfied. If you meet 2, you are not satisfied. You have to meet all 3. So I will be making reference to the 3-prong test a lot, especially in episodes 4, as we are going through a whole document to see how the person filed. You will be able to know how he was able to satisfy all these 3-prong tests that the USCIS officer really needed. So I've talked about merits. I did a whole lot of videos on it. That was the last week's episode. And also, are you well positioned? Well positioned, I talk about the exceptional ability in also the previous videos. So please, you can go back and look at it. So I'm not going to go much into detail. What I didn't talk about last week was the third prong test, which is on balance, which I feel that I have to throw more light on. When we say the unbalance, what kind of test is that, and how are you, the applicant, able to satisfy that? So that is what we are going to look at the beginning of this training. Then getting to the ending, we can look at a whole structure of an EB2, how you should organize your documents, your petition, how you should organize it. So the three-prong test, unbalance, what does it mean? You see, the unbalance, let me make sure that I drag this one a bit up. Okay. The unbalance, this part is left to the USCIS discretion. But one thing I always tell applicants is that you don't want to be at the mercy of the USCIS officer. The US officer can be a bit generous with certain parts of the requirements at some point, but he's not a Father Christmas to assume for you. Don't say, oh, at this point, the United States officer should assume that I have really met all the requirements. No, you are going to control the officer's thinking path. You have a bit of ability to do this. So I'm going to walk you through it. Though the discretion at this point, you see, this is how the unbalance really is. When you, for instance, when you take your case to the court, we have the defense counsel and the accusing counsel. Both counsels will, or the judge will ask both counsels to give their final submission. So that is how the unbalance really in terms of the legal perspective. Unbalance, now, before I give my judgment, how should I weigh the two arguments? On one hand, the USCIS officer is weighing the green card to be given to you against a US citizen. On the other hand, he is also looking at whether you have met all the requirements, whether you are very much you have satisfied all requirements to get that green card. So he's weighing, he's in a decision-making mode, and you have to influence his decision-making by making your arguments more stronger and stronger at this particular moment. So we are going to look at a typical example of the unbalance. Even before we go to a typical EB2 document, I took an extract of it to explain to you how the unbalance actually comes in at this point. Now, like I said, this part depends on the USCIS officer's judgment, but you can control the officer's thinking path. And how do you do that? You ask yourself very, very necessary questions at this stage. Put yourself in the shoes of the visa officer right now and ask yourself, will the US suffer any harm if the visa officer disapproves your petition? What are some of the harm the United States officer, the United States as a nation will suffer if that green card is held away from you, if you are disapproved from getting this green card? And when you ask these questions, the harm can be very, so at this moment, you have to be using more pressing words, more, not threatening per se, but more serious, exigent situations which can happen if that visa is taken away from you. So, and at this moment, you don't only cite US news. For instance, you may want to look at US news in your area where there's a lot of threats due to shortages of professionals in this area. For instance, IT, let's say the cybersecurity space. Russia-Ukraine war is ongoing. Everybody is talking about cyber threats. You are a cybersecurity professional. Therefore, you will have the opportunity to fit yourself here that, see, if you don't give me that green card, the United States is going to lose professionals in this field. And with time, US IT systems are going to get exposed to cyber criminals. That is one way of what? Of winning the argument at this stage. So it's not like you are using a subtle threatening language. Let me tell you something about the United States. The United States is a security conscious country. They very much care about their security. And anything that will threaten the US economy, threaten their defense, threaten their environment, threaten their citizens, they really, really pay attention to it. So why should a US visa officer hold a green card when the professional can come in and fit this role to make sure that the United States is safe, secure within its borders and outside its borders? So that is what the visa officer is looking for. And that is where you have to play on his mind at this particular moment. So for instance, you are in environmental science, wastewater treatment. So at this moment, you said, I see, US Great Lakes are going to suffer huge pollution because we are lacking professionals in this field. And as I'm coming in with this expertise to make sure that I save US Great Lakes from pollution through my technology, through my skills, through my exceptional abilities, which you have already mentioned a few of it. Therefore, if you hold this green card from me, the United States risk losing is what? It's quality, precious water bodies. Perfect. You see, most of these things are capable of influencing the visa officer's argument to give you that green card. Research has shown that most applicants receive RFE, which is a request for evidence, because they fail to address this part. They leave it at the mercy of the visa officer. So they get an RFE where the officer says the applicant refused to satisfy the third prong test, which is the unbalance. Don't be at the mercy of the visa officer. Go that mile to convince the ending point, the ending conclusion, to buttress your case. Now, another thing that you also, besides the threatening US news about your research, where if you don't come in, the US is going to suffer harm, you can get a hold of this news from the internet. Browse your field. Look at news which is written, which is very threatening in your field because there are shortage of professionals or something like that. Then also buttress it with recommendation letter quotes. This is going to make your petition more stronger. I can't stress enough on quotes from letters of recommendation, putting it into your petition. You see, most of the time, the US visa officer is adjudicating a lot of cases that he doesn't have the time to go back and pick your letters of recommendations and read them one by one. You putting excerpts of these recommendation letters into the petition, make your petition stronger and make his job easier. And when his job is easier, he becomes happy. And the more inclined he is to giving you that green card. So you see that, for instance, this applicant is into wastewater treatment. And he said that the US water bodies are going to suffer huge pollution if he's allowed to depart the United States, or if he's kicked out of the United States. And his letter of recommendation, his recommender wrote this. He said that several US water bodies are at risk of harmful algal blooms due to receiving untreated farm runoffs with nitrogen and phosphorus loads. Mr. So-and-so or Mr. Blank expertise in microalgae remediation will be precious in averting such ecological catastrophe. You see the strong word he used, ecological catastrophe. And it's a threatening word if you look at it that way. So at this moment, you have to use a bit of stronger words to make it very convincing to the US officer that the security of the United States is threatened if we allow this guy to leave the United States, or if we deny this guy entry into the United States. So that is how we win the unbalanced argument, using strong words, using strong phrases, which is capable of reinforcing your case to get a favorable adjudication. At this moment, let us look at how a typical structure looks like, how a typical EB2 structure looks like. You see, first of all, you're going to get a Word document, of course, to type whatever petition or explanation or whatever convincing you want to be doing. And the first page is going to be for table of contents. Table of contents, as I've indicated with two direction arrows, is iterative. You see, you can't get a perfect draft at the first time. So most of the time you'll be putting in certain things, you'll be yanking certain things, making sure that things you are putting in is not going to cause harm to you at the far end. So you make sure that always we're in editing mode. There are times ideas come in, you put in, there are times that new achievements come, you fix it in. There are times that you take some out because you think it doesn't play any role in your petition. All these things will be going on. So table of contents will be edited even at the end of your composition, at the end of your document, because you can't get a perfect table of contents because you are always in editing mode. Then you come to chapter 1. Chapter 1, you are going to list your degrees, your academic laureates, your masters, your PhD, if you are doing any, or even if it's ongoing. You see, mostly people don't add their PhD because they are still in the current PhD state. But doing your PhD means make sure that you are still reinforcing your field. You are still showing that you are still active in your field and doing something. One advice, a caution I will give is that if your PhD is a divergence from whatever degree you are using as a pivot right now, then you may not want to go into detail in what you are doing it at the PhD level. You may just say that you are doing a PhD which is going to enforce your overall knowledge and being better at your job, but you may not want to go into detail because For instance, let's say you are a mechanical engineer and you are doing a PhD in cybersecurity. If you can find a way to link cybersecurity to mechanical engineering, then it's going to be your bread and butter. But if you don't find any link between what you are using as your pivot degree for the national interest waiver and your PhD, then it's going to be like a detour. It's going to be like a complete deviation from your field, which keeps the visa officer asking what of your commitment. You see, he is looking at your commitment, whether you intend to continue working in this field that you're going to get national interest waiver green card for. So you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. You want to be very much subtle with whatever information you're going to put in. So that is my piece of advice at this moment. Where's evaluation? Of course, if you are a foreign applicant with foreign degrees, you may want to go through works equivalence. And this is where you are going to mention that you have gone through the works evaluation and your degree is equivalent to the United States degree. As you'll be typing that and you'll be referencing. Part of your typing, when we look at a typical petition, you see that every statement you make, you have to provide proof, evidence, and you are going to reference this evidence. So please take note of that. Chapter 2, intrinsic merit. The whole of the chapter 2 is going to be dedicated for intrinsic merit, national importance, and whatever it is. You see, organizing your petitions into these chapters shows your organizational skills in itself. You don't want to send a kind of messed up petition. It doesn't represent you good. So organize your petition like you are writing your undergraduate thesis or your postgraduate thesis. So you're going to organize them in chapters like that, allocating each chapter to a major point which you want to discuss. Remember that with the national interest, global interest, intrinsic merit, as you are going to address that, you have to dedicate one paragraph at least to introduce the visa officer to your research. I said it in my previous videos that see, people who adjudicate this case, most of them, they are not professors. They are not academicians. They don't have even that doctorate degree you are pursuing right now. It's like you meet somebody outside and the person tells you, tell me what you do. What do you do? And why do you do what you do? You see, it sounds like elevator speech. And you don't want to bring in all the jargons because they get a person bored. And if the person is not science-oriented or whatever technical field you find yourself, you will not be able to understand or carry the conversation further. So you want to be a little bit simplistic in a layman's language to explain what I do. So for instance, my research, what did I do? What do you do? Oh, I take algae to clean wastewater to make them very clean and less harmful before they are being discharged into the water bodies. That's what I do. So you dedicating one paragraph of your petition to explain to the visa officer what you do and its importance, it's not going to cause any harm to you. That means you are setting him up to understand. Most of these petitions at times may get rejected because the officer doesn't understand your research in the first place. If you continue with the scientific jargon, that technical jargons, he may not understand your research or what you do. So take note of that. And its application to the United States, of course, it's also be addressed. Besides talking about importance, national, intrinsic, global importance, what is currently happening in the United States where your research can fit or solve is very important application to the United States. When you do these things, you are avoiding RFE. You are avoiding further requests for evidence. Because the more USCIS send you requests for evidence, the more you are opening yourself up for denial. Though request for evidence itself is not bad, but it puts you in a state of panic mode, and you don't want to be panicked. So you want to cover all your loopholes a bit, so that you don't get something like we call a boilerplate or salad plate RFE, where your SCIS officer throws a whole lot of questions that you don't even know how you're going to start it from. So make sure you reduce, even if you get RFE, you do something simple so that you can address, not a whole lot of boilerplate RFE that you have to be dealing with. Chapter 3, you are talking about your well position, your further work plans in the United States. So that is the whole of chapter 3. How well positioned are you? You have already talked about your degree, so don't spend much time at that point. But talk about discrete skills you have gotten in the line of your research, in the line of your duties, at your job work. What IT skills are you using? What software are you using? What systems are you using? What programs, computer programs are you capable of running? All these things are exceptional ability styles you can put in. What achievements, accolades have you received? Citations, if you have any. If you don't have any, give reasons why you have very limited citations. It's very important so that you don't open yourself up for further RFEs. All these things we are going to be looking at in the real petition to see how the person addressed most of these issues. Then you come to chapter 4 on the balance. So you dedicate chapter 4 for the unbalanced part. And you see that I have listed a whole lot of ideas of how you are going to maneuver the unbalanced area. For instance, why waive the job offer requirement for you? Why should we waive a job offer requirement for you? Your other colleagues are going through job and getting a green card. Why should we waive for you in your own path? You see, like I said, not everybody go through employment to get green card. Not employers are becoming very stingy with green card applications nowadays. So there are different ways that people use to satisfy this part. And part of it is that you are coming to apply for this green card to go back and get committed to that same field and work in the same field. Some people go extra mile of even getting a screenshot of job posting where the employer said that we do not sponsor visa for foreign applicants. So to show that this is your field, but the visa officer said the employer said they don't sponsor visa for foreign applicants because of federal regulations. For instance, the employer may be using federal funds, which requires that he use a U.S. permanent resident or a citizen to do the job, and you can't use a foreigner. So the employer's hands are tied at that particular point. So that means that you need that green card to go back to that field and solve a particular national issue. And it's also one acceptable way of doing that. And why are you better than ordinary US citizens? All this part falls on the unbalance. Why are you better? You will also be talking about your additional degree. If you have master's degree and the job, you have realized that in this job field, they are hiring a bachelor's degree. They are hiring high school students. You said, actually, this job is highly technical, that you need somebody with an advanced degree like yourself to be able to fit that role to do the job better. But because employers don't find advanced degree holders, they have to settle down on first degree people with little experience, which don't get a job done very well. So all these arguments are a way of what? Getting the unbalanced arguments one to yourself. And also why US economy, environment, or energy system will be disrupted. I've talked about it. If you have been allowed, or if your presence in the US is taken away. So please take note of that. Why progress in your research group will be stopped. Let's say you are still in the PhD program and doing research, and if you are allowed to leave the United States without finishing that research aspect, how progress will be stopped. It could be that your research is looking at a bigger scale-up event after your PhD. Talk about that and how it will be disrupted if you have to pack your things and go back home because you didn't get that green card. Talk about that. And why US IT system will be disrupted. If you're in the IT or cyberspace field, talk about how US IT systems can be affected or exposed or vulnerable to attacks if you are not allowed to continue working to better US IT systems or whatever it is. Be innovative. Talk about some of these things. Then the chapter 5 will talk more about people who are in non-immigrant status who are currently in the United States. You'll be sending copies. So at this moment, you'll not be doing a lot of typing. You're only referencing documents you have added as to show your non-immigrant status in the United States. It can be I-20, passport, birth certificates of you and your dependents, whatever documents which is related to your immigration to the United States, previous visa pages, just add it. For those who are outside, I think your passport page, birth certificate, and previous visa pages is enough to do that. Because after your petition is approved, I mean, those outside the US, you'll be going through consular processing where you also be amassing a whole lot of documents that you use to file your petition to show that you were qualified for that green card and you are going to the US to still continue working in that field. So that is the only difference between those inland and those out of the United States. Now, let's come down to look at some of the forms you'll be filling along as you apply for this type of green card. The first form is the form I-140. The form I-140 is the petition for alien worker form. It's on the USCIS website. You can easily download it. It's easily downloadable, and you can type whatever keys you want to type in to fill it. It's a 3-page form. So filing EB2 green card is not just filling this 3-page form, government form. Though this is going to be on top of your whole petition you have typed, this is the form filling, asking biographic data about you, your dependents, your country of origin, and whatever it is. So take note of that. And I-485. I-485 is the adjustment of status form. For those who are within the United States who are moving from F1 to green card, H1B to green card, whatever it is, visa you are on to green card, you'll be filing the form I-485 form to adjust status from whatever status you are into a permanent resident status. And this one, all outline applicants, like I said, will not go through this adjustment of status, so you don't have to fill this form. You are going to consular processing, where after your petition, you go through the NVC, the National Visa Center, which sends your case to the country of residence, the embassy there, for you to go for visa interview. Now, you also be filling form ETA Part B. This is one of the simplest forms to fill. It's only asking about your current work and your previous work experience stuff, which as far as I remember, it's not that difficult to fill. Just be honest with it and fill whatever part it is. It's just a requirement that you have to fill. This is called the labor certification part that I talked about in my previous video, which is just a form. It's just a one-page form, to the best of my knowledge. It's not difficult to fill at all, but just that's a requirement. If you don't fill it, you are going to get RFE. So don't get RFE. Don't expose yourself to RFE because of this simple form. And also optional travel authorization. This is optional. It's called the form I-31, travel authorization document. Let's say you file this form, but you have intent to travel to your home country. Remember that it's not advisable to travel when you have a pending green card case. But if you want to travel for any purpose or any means, you may want to file this form so that it will give you the liberty to travel and come in through something called the advanced parole. So take note of that. That's called the travel authorization form. Well, you have to fill it. You don't lose anything if you fill and get it, and if you don't use it. So if you have to take advantage, because if you want to fill at a later stage, it comes with a fee, and that's what we are going to look at. So let's look at the fees. As of today, May 9th, 2022, the fees for the filing is set that the I-140 is $700. I-485 is around that's $1,140 US per adult. And if you have dependent children, each children below 14 years is going to be charged $750. So if you have a large family, then that means your budget is huge. If you are a PhD student with a spouse and let's say 2 kids, that means you know the amount you'll be paying by calculation. You should know. And if you are filing I-31, which is a travel authorization document, with the I-485, that means concurrent filing. If you are filing everything concurrently with it, you are not going to be paying anything. But if you file it separately, let's say later you put in the I-485, later realize that you may be needing the travel authorization document, then you are going to pay a fee for it, $575. So you see, you not filing it is going to cost you. You filing it together with your adjustment status forms won't cost you anything. And if you get it and you don't use it, it doesn't cost you anything. So why don't you file it together? Let's look at the risk, financial risk. What are the financial risks? You see, part of this application you'll be making fun of, because immigration petition is not everything in black and white. It's not everything a done deal. It's not guaranteed, though the approval rate is very high. But anything can happen in immigration. It's like a lottery. So there are financial risks. So let's say you file the petition alone, the I-140 alone, you pay your $700. If it gets denied, you have only lost your $700. If you're in the US, you can decide to file concurrently the I-140 and the adjustment of status together. In that way, you are paying $100,840 if you are just one applicant, or more if you have dependents. And if your case is denied, you know that you are losing this money. So you losing $700 versus losing $1,840, that's a decision you are going to take. I can't take that decision for you. It's your risk tolerance level and how good you see your profile to be. But it comes with some good side, which I think mitigates the risk. For instance, when you file concurrently, you get timely green card in hand. When your I-140 is approved, it's going to take additional 8 months to 10 months for your adjustment status to get approved again. But when you file concurrently, you realize that all your forms tied together at one point. So the moment they approve your I-140, they go straight to your I-145. We speed it up a little. But when you finish, or when you get I-140 approval, you are now coming to file I-145, then you are going to go through a whole cycle again, and it's a headache. And if you have dependents, your spouse gets work authorization to work, whilst your green card is pending, whilst no decision is made on it. So you can maybe recoup some money back through your spouse while she's working when or let's say in case your petition get denied. So these are the decisions you have to be making for yourself as an applicant to see whether you are filing concurrently or you are going to file a single-handed, which I cannot make that decision for you. At this moment, I hope I've addressed a whole lot of issues today. And let me use this moment to say that this is not a legal immigration advice. I'm just walking you through as somebody who have experience in these things and just for education purpose. So please, if you have a complex immigration issue, let's say you have a kind of immigration, your immigration record is not that good, you have some loopholes in immigration records, you have some bad negative immigration records, then you may want to be talking to an immigration lawyer. But other than that, if you think you have the confidence and you have a clean immigration records in the United States to go through this one, then I'll say go for it. See you next week. And for next week, we are going to look at a whole stuff, a whole lot of things for next week. Next week, we are looking at starting with the practical application. I will advise that at this moment, next week, try and get a Word document set up and follow along. Get a Word document. It doesn't have to be a perfect petition, but just put in the structures. As we are following along, you can be putting in bullet points later to develop it into a full petition. Follow along, get a Word document. It doesn't hurt. Once you follow along, you will be amazed about the kind of ideas that will come in mind as you start typing this thing. And before you realize, you have a whole petition ready to be sent to the USCIS, which you don't need a lawyer to do. At any point in time when you are facing any blockade, don't forget to post any comment, which I can come in and help at any point in time. Enjoy the spring, get into the summer. The weather is very good. Enjoy it, and I'll see you next week as we begin episode 4A, which is the practical application of an EB2 national interest waiver in a Word document. So see you next time. Until I see you again, I say it's bye-bye for now.